spend some time talking to you a bit about what's happening in the market, the industry, and EMC's 2016 go-to-market. So first and foremost, I think it's pretty safe to say that software is really driving and defining a new way of business. What we're seeing here is just a ton of disruption around Uber disrupting a taxi cab industry, for example, or Netflix disrupting Blockbuster. But we're also seeing this happen in larger, more industrial companies too. Recently read a quote from the CEO of Home Depot, and he said, when I realized Amazon sold more hammers than we did, I realized we needed to become a technology company. And kind of chuckled there, and also it's pretty eye-opening that software is really driving a new way of business and driving a new way of transformation, but it's really not about the big eating the small. It's more about the fast eating the slow. And this ultimately becomes the real work of IT. This is really what IT's role is enabling this new way of business. Unfortunately, we have a bit of a challenge in the existing ecosystem in that 75% of the funds and the resources and the headcount we have today is driven towards keeping the lights on. A lot of times we look at IT projects like migrations and upgrades and consolidations and re-architectures. Those are all highly engaging IT projects, but don't really drive towards that business creation or that business value driver. We have a bunch of unplanned work too, product outages or user errors or environmental issues, and God knows we have our fair share of changes, right, with software and firmware currencies, patches and hot fixes, and field change orders. All of these things oftentimes get in the way, if you will, of real business driver here which is around business projects. New applications, feature releases, new markets or locations or reporting, et cetera, et cetera. This really, I think, is where most people agree they'd like to spend more time, they'd like to spend more headcount, they'd like to spend more funds, but it's getting out of our traditional paradigm of that 75-25 that's challenging. Now, I'll use a great example from an EMC standpoint where we just recently released a new version of our quoting system. We were on a legacy Oracle platform. We had two different views, both internal and external, of our customer quotings. And it took us 3 days to get a quote. We had over a 50-person organization designed just to help intermediate all those changes. And what we saw is through, a transformation and a bigger focus on those business projects, we were able to launch a new version of ERP, in our case SAP, and this created a single view both for partners and customers. We took our quoting from 3 days down to 1 day, and the 50-person organization has been substantially reduced to only a few folks, and those other individuals were retooled on the next business transformation or software enablement project for the company and for the business. Unfortunately, this paradigm is only getting worse. Data is projected to grow 44x between now and the year 2020, and budgets are flat and headcount is flat, in some cases down or very, very moderate growth, 1% to 2%. That's both local and global IT forecast for 2016 is roughly 2.5% or 3%. So certainly nothing that's going to have a profound impact on our ability to refocus. So something needs to change here. We cannot continue to do what we've always done. We'll get what we always got, and in that case, it was a perception of IT being slow and inferior to services that they could get elsewhere. And that enablement of software and that enablement of transformation is ultimately where the real work of IT needs to be driven. So we need a solution. We need a solution to help tip this 75-25 paradigm. And in our world, we believe converged infrastructure is really the foundation of that. If the end goal here is to transform, it's very difficult to go from our existing infrastructures to transformation. There's really an on-ramp here through modernization. Modernization enables automation, and then that modern automated infrastructure becomes a platform in which you can transform. So let's talk a bit about that. What is converged infrastructure? In our world, it's literally server, network, storage, backup, and DR delivered as a single solution. But really, the value isn't about the piece parts. It's ultimately how those piece parts are integrated. It's the 5 pillars on the right here. Engineered, manufactured, managed, sustained, and supported. So let's talk about that for a moment or two. From an engineering standpoint, we literally build 3,000 of these systems in a given year. We figure out the IOP ratios and compute densities and port counts. And if you look at kind of a traditional customer environment, you guys may embark on a engineering effort once a year, right? Or once every 3 years if it's a large storage refresh. Does it make sense to really build that expertise in-house when you can buy that expertise and refocus again on that green box on those business projects? The next step is really this whole notion of manufacturing. We rack, stack, cable, and integrate all these solutions on our own. Once again, at a scale of 3,000 some units, compared to a scale of one a year or one every couple of years. Again, does it make sense to build out that team when you can buy that capability in a converged stack? The next is managed. You think about all the element managers, one for compute, one for network, one for storage. If you have multiple vendors, you'll have an element manager for storage vendor A and B and compute vendor 1 and 2, and this becomes a challenging ecosystem. Again, in a converged stack, we have a single management layer for all the elements of the stack. We also upgrade and sustain these blocks as a single unit. So think about a single code load for hypervisor, compute network storage, backup, etc., and all the interoperability value that comes with a single code load. Again, not building out my own team, but buying the ability to do root compatibility and a matrix in which all the elements work together, and allows me to refocus on that green box, those business projects. And again, I can have many folks in procurements figuring out how to support this, maintenance contract end dates and what comes up when, or I can deliver this in a single maintenance contract, again, allowing us to get out of the red boxes and into the green boxes. That is ultimately the value of converged infrastructure. And this is one of those things where, don't take our word for it. IDC spent a lot of time, surveyed over 500 customers, and the metrics, I think, are pretty telling here. Almost 4 times more applications deployed. To me, that's a utilization metric. Again, speaks to the engineering and the manufacturing elements of you're getting more out of what you have. A 4x faster time to market. That's that business value. That's that MyQuotes example. And almost a 96% reduction in downtime. Again, because I've got an engineered, manufactured, and sustained platform, I have less risk. There's less seams and there's less gaps, and I've got a better outcome there. So ultimately, this gives me a foundation to build both private and then figure out how, if I want to go to hybrid or public, I've got an on-ramp to do that through a modern infrastructure that I can then automate and transform my business around. And I can run both traditional and next generation applications on this. Obviously, there's different flavors of Converge. The value proposition is the same across those flavors. So really, if you look at this converged stack as the modern data center infrastructure, I've built that infrastructure on these modern data center pillars of architecture. These are all likely flash either enabled or all flash. Scale out is an inherent element in all these converged platforms. They become more software defined, taking the intelligence out of that more proprietary hardware layer and into the software layer. They become cloud enabled to burst here, burst there, and trusted. And the beauty of this is inherently in this platform, I'm consolidating vendors. I'm gaining almost a #1 market share position across the architectural elements and the infrastructure modernization platform as well. We've got more experience with customers than anybody in this space, a long-term viability, and the reach, scale, trust, and reputation that you've come to expect in working with EMC. So I really encourage you to take some time to engage with the EMC account executives to learn more about the strategy and how we can help you guys drive more of that effort into the green and less into the red. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it very much, and best of luck in 2016.